The Vietnam War is often dated from the 1950s to 1975s, but its roots go much deeper. To truly understand the war, we must begin in the 19th century, when Vietnam was colonized by France. Over the next century, Vietnamese resistance, Cold War politics, and nationalist aspirations would transform a regional struggle into one of the most devastating wars of the 20th century. French colonization of Indochina. In 1862, France officially annexed parts of southern Vietnam, beginning its rule over what would become French Indochina, including Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. The French exploited Vietnam's resources, rubber, rice, and minerals, while suppressing local culture and nationalism. Although France developed infrastructure, education, and cities like Saigon and Hanoi, the majority of Vietnamese remain poor and landless. Rise of Vietnamese nationalism. By the early 20th century, nationalist movements were growing. Figures like Phan Boi Chau and Phan Chau Trinh called for independence, but it was Ho Chi Minh, a communist revolutionary, who would become the face of Vietnamese resistance. Educated in France and influenced by Marxism, he founded the Indochinese Communist Party in 1930. Japanese occupation and the Viet Minh. During World War II, Japan occupied Vietnam, forcing out the French temporarily but allowing them to administer the colony under Japanese supervision. Amid the chaos, Ho Chi Minh formed the Viet Minh, League for the Independence of Vietnam, in 1941, combining communist ideology with nationalist appeal. August Revolution, 1945. After Japan's surrender in August 1945, the Viet Minh seized control of Hanoi and declared Vietnamese independence, forming the Democratic Republic of Vietnam, DRV, with Ho Chi Minh as president. However, the Allied powers allowed the French to return, setting the stage for a renewed conflict. French return and conflict begins. The First Indochina War broke out in 1946 when French troops clashed with Viet Minh forces in Hanoi. The war quickly escalated into a long guerrilla campaign. The Viet Minh, though underarmed, used knowledge of the terrain and popular support to wear down French forces. Dien Bien Phu and French defeat. 1954 and 1954, General Vo Nguyen Giap led the Viet Minh in a major siege at Dien Bien Phu, trapping French forces in a remote valley. After weeks of bombardment, the French surrendered. The defeat shocked France and marked the end of their colonial rule in Vietnam. Backed by the US, Ngo Dinh Diem ruled South Vietnam with authoritarian control, suppressing communists and Buddhists alike. His regime was corrupt and increasingly unpopular. Meanwhile, in the north, Ho Chi Minh's government began supporting insurgents in the south. Birth of the Viet Cong. In 1960, communist insurgents formed the National Liberation Front, NLF, or Viet Cong, to fight the Diem regime. Guerrilla warfare began to destabilize the countryside. U.S. military advisors increase. Under President Eisenhower and later President Kennedy, the U.S. sent thousands of military advisors to assist South Vietnamese forces. Though not officially at war, the U.S. was becoming deeply entangled. Coup and assassination, 1963 and 1963, with U.S. encouragement, South Vietnamese generals overthrew and assassinated Ngo Dinh Diem. The hope was for a stronger, more democratic government. Instead, it unleashed political chaos in South Vietnam.